In part 2 of our basic introduction to astrology, we'll go over the elements and correspondences of astrology. I'm Ike Baker, and this is Arcanvm. In traditional astrology versus modern, the classical planets are utilized. These are the 7 planetary bodies visible with the naked eye from our georeferential position on Earth. And these are the planets we will be covering in this video. The modern or outer planets will be given a space in a separate video in this series. We'll be referring to these classical planets in their called-in order, which is elaborated in detail in the Minor Arcana Micro Lecture Episode 1, The Planetary Hours. Saturn is the furthest observable planet in the ancient sky, second largest in our solar system, and the slowest in orbit. Saturn has a distinguishing feature of a ring, or several rings, comprised of an asteroid belt, posited to be the remnants of a moon which collided with the planet some 4.5 billion years ago. Hence is Saturn encircled, or orbited by a field of destruction. Saturn is the Roman name for the Greek titan Kronos. Kronos is cognate with the Greek word chronos, meaning time, in both ancient and modern Greek. Symbolically, Saturn is known as the Greater Malefic, as it represents the limiting and decomposing aspect and nature of time. Saturn represents necessary limitations of incarnation and of matter, and the natural process of decay. Saturn can be conceptualized as the strict teacher or harsh taskmaster, whose lessons, once learned and integrated, are a boon. A good image for Saturn would be a tall, dark, mysterious, ancient, hooded figure, traditionally carrying a scythe, with which to harvest a crop. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system, and its mass is 318 times that of the Earth and 2.5 times that of all the other planets combined. Jupiter is the third brightest thing in the night sky next to the Moon and Venus. Jupiter, or Yahweh, is the Roman name for the Greek god Zeus, king of the gods, symbolically benevolent and known as the Greater Benefic. Some astrologers and astronomers believe the massive Jupiter has protected Earth and made it habitable by diverting potentially harmful objects away from the Earth and into its own gravitational pull. Truly a beneficent planet. Jupiter is associated with abundance, growth, wealth, plenty. A good image for Jupiter would be a great and charitable king, a king who gives back. Feasting and laughter are part and parcel of a Jovian nature, hence the term jovial. Mars is known as the red planet for its reddish appearance to the visible eye in the sky. It is the second smallest planet in our solar system and fourth from the Sun. It has a very similar landmass to that of Earth. Mars is the anglicized pronunciation of the original Latin or Roman name for the god of war, Martus. In Greek, it was Aries, the wild, bloodthirsty son of Zeus. Hence the term martial when concerned with things having to do with the nature of combat, as in martial arts or martial law. However, a really good signification of the planet Mars is just energy, vibrant, vital, fiery even. A good image for Mars would be a young, well-built, perhaps athletic warrior, clad in armor, with a fiery disposition. The sun is not a planet, but rather a star, and therefore with the moon is considered one of two luminaries. The sun is the center of our solar system. It's a nearly perfect sphere of unimaginable heat which generates a magnetic field. It's the most important source of energy for life on Earth and accounts for 99.86% of the entire mass of the solar system. Known as Sol in the ancient Latin or Roman world, it was the spiritual center of ancient celestial pantheons. The sun was regarded as a symbol of resurrection, setting in the west each day only to rise again in the east each morning. The Egyptians to this day have a particular word for which they describe death. They call it westing. The sun is arguably the penultimate symbol of the ever-giving life force. Its mere nature is to sustain life. And it has been typified by the archetypes of ancient solar deities, the dying and resurrected gods. Hence are so many of these resurrected gods born around the time of year where daylight is the most scarce. The ancient Egyptian god Ra-Atum was the sun god of Egypt. Atum alone was the solar disk. Ra-Atum was the sun on the horizon, when one could visibly see its rays pouring out over the darkened sky. Hence the connection between the name Ra and the word ray. Venus was first recorded in the 17th century BCE by Babylonian astronomers. Venus rotates in the opposite direction of most of the other planets, and is the second brightest body in the night sky. Only the moon is brighter. When Venus's orbit around the sun overtakes Earth's orbit, it changes from being visible after sunset to being visible before sunrise. Hence it was known in the ancient world as the morning star and the evening star. Venus, other than the sun, is the hottest planet in our solar system, the average temperature being 462 degrees Celsius. When plotted georeferentially, Venus's orbit creates a visible pattern in the sky known as the 5 petals of Venus, or the Venusian pentagram. The relative positions of Venus, the Earth, and the Sun are repeated 5 times every 8 years, when she returns to the same place in the sky on the same date, creating a 5-pointed star via her orbit. Venus, or Venus, is the traditional Latin or Roman name for Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love, traditionally known as the Lesser Benefic, as opposed to Jupiter's jovial loving kindness. Venus is concerned with the fires of passion primarily, and considered the goddess of beauty, symmetry, sultry, tactile, and sensual pursuits. Venus has also been associated with ideas of unity. Aphrodite in Greek mythology was born of the foam of the sea, her name literally meaning foam-born. She's also symbolized mythologically as the Babylonian goddess Ishtar and the Egyptian Isis. An appropriate image of Venus would be a feminine form in full womanhood, rising from the foamy sea with a fiery gaze, old as time itself, yet possessing the beauty of youth because she is eternally renewed. Mercury is the planet closest to the Sun and fastest in orbit, other than the Moon. It's also the smallest planet. The first mentions of Mercury are from ancient Sumer about 5,000 years ago. Mercurius is the Latin or Roman name for Hermes, the messenger of the Greek gods. Mercury Hermes is of flight foot, meaning very fast in travels. Therefore is he the messenger of the gods, and able to travel to and fro very quickly. He carries the caduceus staff, which was given to him by the god Apollon, allowing him unimpeded access to all 3 realms of existence. As messenger of the gods, Mercury is a symbol of communication and exchange. He also governs trade, commerce, travel, communicative technologies such as writing and the internet, as well as most media in general in contemporary times. A good image of Mercury would be a great magician, the archetype of a teacher, professor, versed in fluid communication of ideas, absorbed in learning and in teaching, hence the term mercurial. This This archetype can create miracles through the knowledge and application of certain natural laws by which he calculates that which is unobservable or occult. The moon is Earth's only natural satellite and remains in synchronous rotation of the Earth, meaning the same side always faces us, hence the term the dark side of the moon. The moon orbits the Earth every 27.3 days. However, the lunar cycle, or phases of the moon observable in the sky, last approximately 29.5 days, hence the term month, formerly being Mond. This timeline or cycle also corresponds to menstrual cycles. Essentially, the moon's gravity generates the Earth's tides. Known as Luna in ancient Rome, the moon was largely identified with the Greek goddess Hecate, the three-faced goddess, in accordance with the waxing full and waning moon phases. She was the triple goddess of witchcraft, sorcery, and magic. Interestingly, the Egyptian word for magic is Eka. She was a dark and mysterious goddess, illuminating the night by reflecting the sun's light. She was also identified with the goddesses Selene and Artemis. Artemis, the twin sister of Apollo, the sun god, was also the goddess of midwifery. Artemis was also the wild goddess of the hunt, one of the three Greek goddesses which remained ever virginal. In ancient Egypt, she was regarded as Hathor, the golden cow, from which Horus the Younger nursed, wearing a crown of a lunar crescent. She is the priestess of the high mysteries. Luna represents the subconscious currents of the dark and mysterious aspects of our subjective experience. She governs the realm of dreams, symbols, and things unseen but felt. She is perhaps the light of intuition, which spurs us on through the treacherous night by showing us the hope of the light from the sun, which has not perished forever, but will return to us in due time. Luna is also the ancient feminine call to adventure. An appropriate symbol for Luna would be a female shaman or ancient priestess of the mysteries of life and death. Perhaps living in the wooded parts of the country, her abode a waypoint and haven from the dark, inhospitable night. A place in which we may receive some pertinent admonition, enigmatic words of wisdom, or a mysterious symbol, which may come to our aid in our darkest moments of peril and trial. The moon is also significant, in that it not only governs the tides of the Earth's fluid, or water, but also the etheric tides. The moon also moves fastest through the signs and houses and has a strong effect on all magical operations or spiritual work of any kind. Her cycles, which divide a year into roughly 12 periods, take her from dark to full. These, along with her sign placements, are essential considerations in almost every type of human endeavor that one could think of, but more especially in operations of magic, meditation, and astrological herbalism. This admittedly concise introduction to the planetary bodies complete, let's move on to the second element of astrology, the signs. We can't really delve into an effective study of the signs of the zodiac without first topically discussing the Empedoclean elements. Since antiquity, the elements of the wise have been known to philosophers, sages, and magicians of all cultures. They are divisions of the constituent aspects that compose reality into 4, sometimes 5 elements. These are traditionally in the West fire, air, water, and earth. What we mean when we talk about the elements has actually less to do with the physical elements themselves. Our experience of the physical elements merely serves as a starting point for us to begin to branch out and understand the elements as abstract qualities. In some systems, the elements are attributed to the 4 quarters and are also given certain correspondences which relate to different combinations of heat and coldness and dryness and moisture. The wheel of the zodiac or zodiacal belt was charted in our distant past by ancient astrologers. In ancient Greek, it comes from zodiakos kyklos, or the wheel or circle of animals. These signs were based on star constellations, observably very far away from our solar system, and so the planets or wanderers appeared to pass through them or before them. These constellations ultimately formed symbols representative of energies or types of experience. The constellations have moved, and the signs do not actually match perfectly with their constellations as typified in tropical astrology. but both systems have been proven to be used to great effect, one perhaps more especially for a certain set of operations than the other. The zodiacal signs are 12 in number, the zodiacal belt being partitioned into 12 sections of 30 degrees, 360 degrees total. These local partitions within the signs are called decans, 3 divisions of 10 degrees, totaling 30. The zodiacal belt traditionally follows the ecliptic, or the sun's apparent yearly path through the sky. It's called the ecliptic because it's where the solar and lunar eclipses occur, where the moon crosses the path of the sun, and so it appears that the sun moves through the wheel of the zodiac. Equinoxes and solstices occur on 4 points along the ecliptic. Solstices occur during the point in the Earth's orbit when the sun is at its greatest distance from the equator. These are also known as the tropics. The equinoxes occur when the sun is at its closest to the equator. The solstices are in summer and in winter, and the equinoxes are in spring and fall. The moon orbits the Earth one full turn approximately every 28 days. As it does this, it also moves through each sign of the zodiac, spending about 2 to 2.5 days in each sign. The place on the ecliptic where the moon crosses, also known as the lunar nodes, make the nodal axis. Before we begin discussing the signs, I'll preface this by saying that we could definitely jump into the deep end with correspondences and associations, but as this is an introductory episode, keep in mind that these aren't meant to be exhaustive. They're meant to be just that, introductions to the various elements. Personal research and study is always on this channel recommended. If you have differing correspondences, great. Please feel free to share them in the comments. The stories and myths of ancient pantheons, such as the Greek, Roman, Egyptian, and Sumerian or Babylonian gods and goddesses, serve as excellent repositories of the characteristics and interactions between the planets and signs of the zodiac, expressed in symbolic or mythic narratives. Now here's where the elements come into play. We can't have a full discussion of the zodiac without talking about the triplicities. These are the groupings of the signs into groups of 3, hence triplicity. In this grouping, they are referred to the Empedoclean elements. These say something about the quality of a sign and have a distinct relation to other signs of similar qualities. Next, we divide them into the Quadruplicities. These are the grouping of the signs into groups of 4. In this grouping, they are referred to phases, cardinal being first or initiative. These are the signs of the equinoxes and the solstices of the seasons. Fixed, this is a middle or apex point of stability. And mutable, this is typically the last phase of the arc, where it's now changing into another phase and another element. These are also divided into polarities, positive and negative, perhaps masculine and feminine, though I prefer active and receptive. Dignities refer to the relative strength or weakness of a planet's natural influence in a particular sign. Rulership is the strongest of these dignities. A sign in which a planet rules is a sign in which a planet feels most at home. It's at its maximum strength or capability to express itself. Exaltation is when a planet is positioned in a sign in which it is comfortable or well positioned regarding the energies involved. Sometimes this is even calculated by decan. Detriment is when a planet is positioned in opposition directly across from the sign which it rules. Fall is when a planet is positioned in opposition directly across from the sign in which it is exalted. These last two dignities are typically harder or more difficult dignities. The scheme of rulerships and dignities comes from a schematic called the Thema Mundi, which was an educational tool utilized by Hellenistic astrologers, most famously perhaps by Macrobius, not only to teach but also to provide a rationale for the system by positing it as a natal chart of the cosmos at its inception. We'll cover this as well as the scheme of planetary joys in further episodes.